Leader Show. I'm your host today, Adrian Evans, and I'm having a fireside chat with leaders from the industry. So leaders from the industry who share with us how they lead their people, how they build cultures that are people-centric, and how they first embrace the many opportunities that present in payments today before they meet the challenges. We know one of the most difficult problems within the payments industry is how do you take talented individuals, enable them to realize their potential, yet balance that with the needs of the organizations, obviously demand for growth and investors, etc. So how do we balance that? Now, one of the most accomplished is Eduardo Volta, and I'm delighted to have Eduardo on the show today. Edo is the Chief Revenue Officer at Divider. Now, his background is actually from working and operating with a number of the schemes, experiencing, again, strong cultures that ultimately have led to significant and exponential growth across American Express and MasterCard, and then most recently with Visa. He has a strong reputation in the industry, and he's one of those people who very few people have got anything bad to say about, which is always a good place, whatever industry event I've ever been at. And his reputation precedes him for being humble, for always looking to learn, and somebody who also has a sense of urgency and action over theorizing something. Yeah. He builds teams by creating a strong sense of belonging and a clarity which enables them to achieve more together. So, Edu, thank you very much indeed for taking the time out of, I know, what's a very busy schedule. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, honestly. It's no effort at all. It's really a pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm very excited. I know there's lots of us to dive into. So I wonder if we could start with, can you share the foundation that's made you whom you are today as both an individual and as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for the question. I think so. If I reflect on my personal and professional journey and my career so far, I think there are a few things that impacted the way I am now as a person, but also as a leader. And I would start, I mean, it sounds like a bit obvious, but I would really start with my upbringing. So I'm very lucky. I've got a very strong family, very close to my parents, very close to my family, even though I live abroad. My family obviously from Italy, but we are a very close-knit family. And one of the key foundation of my education, my upbringing has been really respecting others and do the right thing, do what you think is right, do what you think is decent. And this has really sort of been the first point of call, the anchor for me when I work with people, thinking about how, who do I have in front of me, what's their point of view, and also, even if I disagree, respect that there is a different point of view in front of me. So that respect and that sort of understanding of others has been something that's really been ingrained in me from very early age. And that becomes key, especially as a leader. When you lead people, you are exposed to a variety of people in front of you, a variety of different individuals, and you can only get to trust them and to work with them really well if you start by respecting them, because then you cannot command respect if you don't give respect first, I think. So that's definitely one of the key pillars for me. The second pillar is around, although I come from Turin, I come from a relatively big city, but still very Italian, very local. I've always had this hunger and this search for diversity and for a multicultural environment, and that's really what pushed me to decide to go to study abroad. Came to study in Brighton, and then decided to live all my life abroad in London. London is probably one of the most multicultural places on earth. And even though many cities claim that they are really multicultural, I think there are a few, and London is one of them. And that diversity of opinion is really what makes me thrive. That diversity of point of view, of culture, of way of thinking. I think any team should have that. And we always talk about diversity in sometimes very limited way. We tick boxes on diversity. For me, diversity is really where you got a melting pot of different backgrounds, different views, different opinions, and you bring them together to generate something stronger. That excites me as a leader significantly. Even in my personal life, I'm Italian. My wife is French, so we got kids who are international. They grew up in London. I don't know where they will define themselves. They're probably British, but Italian and French, and that to me is a gift. I feel that I'm giving them to really be citizen of the world. When you translate this in a working environment, I think I've always strived, and one of my key goal when I took over a team is to make the team as diverse as possible, and not by design, but really naturally growing the team into a diverse environment so that we benefit from different point of view. Somebody told me in the past, one of the team I manage is you look at your team and it seems like a melting pot that should never work, and actually it's better than every other team. That to me is one of the best compliment I got in my career, because I think it was really that diversity creates strength. And then the final piece that really is a foundation of my belief and my core is I'm a big believer on focusing on your strength as opposed to try to compensate too much for your weaknesses. I come from an upbringing, the sort of the Latin school system is very much the opposite of that. It's what are you not doing well? How can you compensate that? And I see that my kids go to the French school at the moment, and every time I go and speak to the teacher, they tell me, oh yeah, your kid is good, but this is what they should do better. And I think, okay, but why don't we reverse the conversation and say, my kid is good, okay, what are they doing really, really well that then we can build on? Because that's going to be what is going to drive them in life. Covering some of our weaknesses, obviously, it's important. Progressing and growing, it's important. But really, ultimately, there are lots of studies that shows your core strengths are what really then push in your career. And even when you think about managing a team, that you need to really understand what are the core strengths of every individual in your team and how can you leverage those to make the team better. And it doesn't mean that you shy away from the weaknesses, but it's not a question of just focusing on that, because ultimately you don't build the right confidence in the individual and in the team if you just focus on that. So those are three areas that really are key for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So there's so much there. I've got to take a slight diversion if that's okay. Just there's two elements you picked on then. First of all, the diversity and then the confidence to get the momentum within the team on strength. I agree that there's lots of diversity that happens, and it's demographic. We need these demographics in place. I'd love your view on what's the key advantage to the diversity of mindset that operates within a team. Because lots of people look at this and say, yeah, but so what? Why is that good for business? I'd love to hear your view on that.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and it's a question that it's something that I firmly believe in. So I'm very happy to give an answer. When you think about it, the environment that we're working in, the business environment, let's talk business only for the moment. The business environment we're working on is extremely diverse. So any business that wants to be even, I'm not even talking about the global business, but working with different, even within the UK, you are dealing with different type of company, different personalities, different cultures, because that's what you are doing especially in a market like London. Having a team that doesn't have the diversity will create a huge amount of blind spots, and also will prevent you from connecting to different type of business. So let's think about for Divider, for example, we work with a variety of players. We work with banks, we work with merchants, we work with partners. All of those players come from different mindset, different type of thinking, different type of goals. Having a team that is as diverse as possible will allow you to look at problems that those partners throw at you in different ways, and hopefully come out with a better solution. If instead you are surrounding yourself by people that think in the same way as you and act in the same way as you ultimately only see probably 10% of the problem, or 20%, if you're lucky. You don't see the full spectrum. Obviously, there are complexity, because the more diverse is the team, the more you as a leader need to invest time into getting to that decision, because if there are different point of view. But that's where the respect of opinion comes in. There will be a moment where you need to listen to everything everybody says and then take a decision and move on. And that could contradict some of the things that other people have said. However, if there is the fundamental respect of working together and knowing that you're doing for a better outcome, you can do that easily.
So you see a direct correlation there. It sounds like obviously as a leader, it takes more time and effort, but there's a direct correlation there between having a more diverse team and then navigating that, but at the same time tied towards commercial success.
100%.
Yeah. The other piece for me you mentioned, and I never heard described like this before, though, about focusing on the strengths, giving the team the confidence. And again, it's interesting there with children as well, and the British system as well could be very, it does this well, but by the way, these are the things you could do so much better. What about that, about the confidence it gives a team to get momentum? I'd love to hear your lens on that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. When you manage a team, I think the fine balance that you need to achieve is to know that you're managing individual, but then you're also managing the team altogether. And to me, it starts with the individual to then create the team sense. And so if you individually start working with your team to give them the confidence that to give them, first of all, an awareness where they're stronger, what is the real value, what are the areas that they're probably less strong but we can live with, and you do a good assessment, you build that strength and that confidence at an individual level. And then what is important is how do you bring it together as a team? But ultimately, I'm a big believer that if you bring strong, confident people in the team and there is a fundamental respect, then the team automatically benefit from that confidence, that strength. And so it's maybe it's a psychological game, but ultimately I've seen it happening with a lot of my team. Again, as a leader, you need to invest the time. And this is the thing that people sometimes underestimate is the more time you invest in your team, the more outcome you get. To me, it's a linear, almost exponential equation. So the more time you invest and the more you get back and the more the teams get stronger. And ultimately, it becomes easier, your job as a leader. But that initial investment of time is fundamental.
Wow. Wonderful. So I wonder if we could talk about values. What are the values that drive you and also then drive and help Divido as an organization?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a question that when I think about it, and I spent a little bit of time thinking. Obviously, I joined Divido 2 months ago, so I'm still relatively fresh. Actually,
sure.
2 months today. So today is 2 months anniversary. It sounds maybe a bit cliche, but actually, I'm in a business where the 3 key values that Divido wants to live by are really value that I want to live by.
Okay.
There is so much. So we live by 3 key values, which are being open and humble, unify to amplify, so that the whole idea of collaboration and working together, and then making it happen. And when I think about those 3 values, and I thought through it obviously in the interview process, but then what really resonated with me is that since joining Divido, we live and breathe by those values. Obviously, most companies nowadays have got values, but too often, unfortunately, you see them as a bit of a tick in the box exercise. So we got the values, we put them on the wall, forget about them. Sometimes we pull them out and show them because we have a presentation to give to somebody. We really don't do that at Divido. What I find fascinating is whenever we've got an exec meeting or a leadership meeting, those values are what drive our decision. Okay. It is what drive our people decision, the hiring, unfortunately departing with some people. If people don't live those values, we're not gonna be able to act in the right way as a business. And so when I think about these 3, if I talk about a couple of minutes for each of them individually, there is the open and humble piece, which it's a little bit the same to me, is linked to that respect and that idea of I don't know everything best. It's impossible. No individual independently know everything best. You need to put out there what you know, but be humble enough to know that there are other people in the room that will have a different opinion, that will have probably sometimes a better opinion than you, and you absorb that opinion, you learn and you develop. So that's the number 1 core fundamental. The number 2 is unify to amplify. There has been a lot of talks. I mean,
I'm dying to hear this one. Yeah.
Some people like it, some people don't like the name. For me, it's not about the name. For me, it's about what the sentiment is, and that's what we all agree on.
Okay,
The sentiment is to say, together we are stronger. So we are all strong. I think Todd Latham, we had on the show, has done a really good job at building a strong leadership team, a divider. But so individually, I think we are all strong. We know what we are doing. But the unity of us as a team is stronger than us individually, than the sum of us. And that's really the idea of we need to collaborate. So there is nothing that I can do on my own. The commercial success divider doesn't depend on me or my team. It depends on everybody. Our ability to drive better product doesn't depend on just the chief product officer. It depends on all of us inputting and everything. So that idea is super strong. And then obviously the final explain itself is make it happen. Make it happen on its own is an interesting one, because I think when we chatted in the past, I told you already, I'm a doer. I love to do. I love to think about things, but I love to get involved, do. I'm very hands-on as a leader. But I've seen organizations in the past that I work with where make it happen was the #1 value. And without the rest, without the open number, it becomes very tunnel vision, and actually it can alienate other people. So to me, the idea of divide is make it happen, but in the right way. Obviously, we are a fintech. We want to do things. We want to sign contracts. We want to grow. We want to be seen in the market, but we want to do it in the right way. So we want to do it so that people say, you know what, we don't really just value Divider for what they do, but we value for also how they do it. And all those things are things that are really core to me as well.
Brilliant. So I'm hearing actually that this is a bit like building a house. We ultimately, the roof is sort of making it happen, but we have to start with a level of openness and respect for people, and an openness to be humble enough to receive, but at the same time then recognizing we're greater than the sum of the parts, and together is better, and then we can move forward and actually get stuff done and get things done at pace. But these two anchor operating at pace. Is that the right read on that?
100%, exactly the right read. And it's, to make an example, to bring it to life for me, is I run the commercial team. I've always, most of my career, been in commercial, also sales, account management. You can be the best salesperson ever and sell the biggest contract ever, but if in the process of doing that you've alienated the whole organization because you've been not so nice person, or you have you have alienated other part, that contract signature has got less value, because ultimately we will create problem in the future, and also for you to be able to replicate the success is going to be really hard because you don't have the support of the organization anymore. Absolutely. And to me, that's what it is. Making it happen on its own is not enough.
It's interesting. I love the saying as well that sales is a team game.
100%.
And also, actually, what you should probably include is actually delivery needs to be involved, bid needs to be involved, operations, finances, etc., etc. So I think it probably comes back to that. Together is better.
100%.
Yeah. Look, as CRO for the business, you're responsible for the commercial success of Divido. Perhaps we could go a little bit deeper there on some of the values that are really driving building a customer-centric team and developing a winning proposition. What drives those components?
Yeah, this is something that I think about every day, because as I said, I am responsible for the commercial success of Divido. It's not only me, it's a team effort, but ultimately as the CRO, I need to drive that. For me, when I think about what I want to drive through my team, so when you think about building a great customer success and sales team, there are lots of things that you need to do, lots of things that they need to deliver and everything. I'm lucky enough that I got a fantastic team that they know what they're doing. So I don't need to get involved in the basic of all of that. But there are two values or two sort of pillars for me that I probably live by as a salesperson. And there are some of them are probably a bit counterintuitive or are against what the traditional old school salesperson thing. And these two values for me are: one, listening, know how to listen, and two, absolutely live by do not oversell. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So obviously they're self-explanatory, but let me give you some context around it. So for me, the reason why those two things are important is in an environment like where we play at Divido, which is the payment environment, the financial service environment is complex, multifaceted. We talk to different customers who have different needs, different perspective. And also, let's not forget, we are a small company still. Not everybody knows Divido. You need to present the company and everything. The sort of risk that you run into is that you just talk at your customer. You talk at your customer. You tell them how great Divido is. You tell them, you come out of that meeting and you've lost the chance to really understand what the customer needs from you and what they want. So it sounds maybe a little bit obvious, but the listening skill for a salesperson is fundamental. And I cannot stress that enough. So if in the meeting we spend too much time talking and not enough time listening, our chances of success are going to be diminished, seriously diminished. So the listening piece is super important. And also, the reason why listening is so important is we are still a company that is evolving. We are evolving our product proposition. We are evolving what we want to be in the market. So bringing all of that wealth of information that we have when we are exposed to a customer internally, so that our product team, our tech team, our marketing team can build better strategy, is so fundamental for us. If we come in and say we've won XYZ banks, but we don't really know what they want, we just won, we signed the contract, great. We don't build the future. And so that, for me, the commercial success depends on building the future, not signing the contract just nowadays. So that's number one. Number two, and do not oversell, I think is something that fintech, I mean, everybody should think about, but in the fintech space is it's even more important. Fintech are keen to make it, to grow, to show that they're bigger than they are. And that's okay. That's fine. It's good to be ambitious. It's good that's what I want. I want my team to put ourselves in the best light. But overselling, it's gonna damage relationship in the long term. And that goes back to our value of being open and humble. So we need to be open about what we can deliver today. We need to sell the future. We need to sell what we want to build. We need to sell the dream of what checkout finance can be. But we cannot sit in front of somebody like large retailer and oversell, because ultimately it's going to do a disservice in the long term. So for me, those two values are actually going to be key to our commercial success moving forward. And I know this is something that as a company we really believe in.
Well, yeah, they very much echo. No, delighted you put those out there, because I think every salesperson, everybody's taught to sell by speaking. Yep. And then eventually people realize, actually, we all want recurring revenue. And you want recurring revenue, you need recurring relationships. And that's down to trust, like, and respect. So I love that piece about active listening, but also then accurately positioning rather than either under or overselling.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
The other piece, just to think about it, is on the overselling, is when you are a salesperson, often you are put in front of a customer and saying no to something is uncomfortable. Yeah. As a salesperson, you want to say yes to everything because that's easy. But ultimately, no sometimes build, and you can say it differently. You don't have to say no, but you can build the trust. And actually building the trust, going through the uncomfortable moment to build the trust, will create a much stickier relationship longer term.
Yeah, it's the most important word in business. Yeah. And you know, I'm often here to say that trust is efficient, and it takes time and effort to put up front, but actually it serves like any key relationship we have in our life. Trust and respect are right up there.
100%. 100%.
So that brings us quite nicely on to the fact that I've been very reliably informed from a number of sources around the industry that you are a leader who's committed to lead with curiosity on the one hand and decency also. Can you share where that comes from and what the connection is, again, for you between curiosity, decency, and commercial success?
Yeah, your sources have been too kind.
Yeah. Well, they're consistent. They're consistent.
That's good. That's good to hear. So I think it links to a little bit what we've been talking about so far. So when you think about making decision and everything, so you need to. So as a leader, you're often challenged to make tough decisions, and those tough decisions create the future of the company or break it. So and that's why it's important that you make those decisions in the right way. you'll never know if you're right or wrong, or time will tell you, but on the moment you'll never know. But to me, there are two sort of those two elements of curiosity and decency are the anchor, should be the anchor of your decision. And so when you are in a busy environment, imagine the world nowadays, you are making a million decisions, you're being challenged by a lot of stuff, you're under pressure to deliver on the numbers, you must sign that contract, absolutely, otherwise all hell break loose. You have your team pushing for X, Y, Z, and you need to make those decisions. And so when I'm in this situation, I normally ask myself two questions. One is, do I have the enough information to make that decision? I'll never have all the information, but do I have enough information? Have I've asked the right question? So that comes the curiosity. Have I been questioning enough the issue so that I can reasonably make a decision? And then the number second question is, what is the decent thing to do? What is the right thing to do? And the right thing to do could be the difficult thing to do. Could be saying no, could be letting go of an employee, could be anything that you think about it. But if in your gut you feel that that's the right thing to do, because you've got the right information, you've thought about it, and that's the right thing to do, then you should act on it. How does it link to commercial success? I think it's highly interdependent, because that's the reality. When people, and when I say people, I don't talk about just my team, I talk about our partners, our customer, start working with you and they know that there is a thinking process behind how you make a decision, and if they see that there is a consistent way of how you make decision, it builds a trust, and ultimately people want to work with you as a customer, as a partner, as employee, and then you build the right network, and ultimately the right network build the right business. And for me, I always reflect when I was at MasterCard, at the time Ajay Banga was the CEO, and was talking about this decency quotients, DQ, which has been talked about and everything. When I remember him talking about that, it really resonated with me, because I think it's, we talk about IQ, EQ, all of these are important, but the decency piece of saying, are we doing the right thing? Are we, and this doesn't mean that we are good Samaritan always. We are still in business. We need to make tough decisions. We need to make our call. But on the core, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And look at the successes of MasterCard. Mastercard had from that. It's not just that, but that fund base and fund foundation is, I think, is really, really key. And I live and breathe through that every day.
Wonderful. There's so much connected there, if I may, the curiosity, the decency, leading to those really good questions to question yourself, but also ultimately, fundamentally, builds a consistency of relationship, a consistency of decision making, also then builds trust, builds a network. So there's this sort of chain of pearls really that actually pulls all that together. And it's fascinating. Obviously, a huge admirer myself of Ajay, but I remember him once making the distinction. He said, DQ is not about being nice. He said, DQ is about making appropriate decisions and doing the right thing and actually responding decently and appropriately. It's not about being nice. And I thought that was a really good distinction there. And I love his term as well. I want to have people's hands on their back, not in their face. I think metaphorically, that's quite powerful. And again, but comes down to respect more than anything.
Yeah. 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think you hit the nail on the head on this idea of nice versus decent. People use the word interchangeably. They're not. Everybody wants to be nice, and I want to be nice, obviously, and I try to be as much as I can. But sometimes it's not about being nice. It's about what is the decent thing to do, what is the right thing to do for the business, and those two can be sometimes different. However, I've noticed that if you have those anchors and this moral compass when you make decision, even when you then have to deliver maybe news that you wouldn't want to deliver, you can still have a relationship, you can still have a connection, because the person in front of you understands that what you're doing is linked to a thinking process, and they see the decency coming through. Not everybody wants to see, but if you have built that respect that we were talking about before, ultimately even tough decision don't need to lead to bad consequences.
Yeah, I just think this, so often we can get caught in the heat of the moment or the heat of the deal or whatever it is. It's interesting. I've got a very good saying, or that's people I partner with, is when we're in that situation, firstly, let's take some time out and zoom out a bit. Yeah, let's
Right.
not say things we don't probably want to, but also let's go much higher and go, I'm going to trust the relationship here.
Yeah.
And actually, do you know what? I've yet to see that not work out.
Yeah.
When you take a zoom out to go, I'm going to trust the relationship and just move away from the heat of the moment of what's actually happening here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so true, and it's great to hear you reflect on that.
Yeah, yeah, and as a leadership team at Divider, we've gone through these 2 days of intensive, like sort of working together, and we were working across this model, this pyramid model, and at the base of to build a
Sure.
better team, and at the base of this model there is the trust. How do you build trust among the team? And then you can start having healthy conflict within the team, and then you can start taking more difficult decisions. But the base of the trust is fundamental. And building trust comes in different form, but being consistent in the way you work with your team, being able to make share certain values, being vulnerable as well, being vulnerable yourself, so that people see that, you know what, you're not putting on a mask, you are being yourself. All those things are fundamental, and then you can start looking at the rest.
Wonderful, wonderful. So obviously, I think what's driven the whole of our, the theme through this conversation has been as manifold. I think the trust, respect, using various anchors to ground yourself at various points. I wonder if we could, who's been most influential in you becoming the authentic leader you are today? Because I think one of the things that I noticed, and again today, is you just show up as you. And who's been most influential for you?
It's not a difficult question, but I think I would say, so when I look at my career, obviously my parents, my family, they influenced the way I am a lot in the early stage of my life. But when I look at my career, I think I've been lucky enough to have extremely good leaders. And I'm not saying that they were all perfect, but I had extremely good leaders across my career, the majority of them. And I think, and I had some bad leader, a couple of leaders that I would never work for them again. But what I think has built me as I am is I've always tried to learn from those leaders what I like or disliked. So for me, obviously, having leaders that I didn't like to work for wasn't great at the moment. But it also built me as I am, because it built me on what is it that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
What are the things that I really don't like as an employee and I don't want to be as a leader? And so I cannot pinpoint one single person or one or two people that have really shaped me,
Sure.
but I've had a variety of leaders and mentors that really shape me as I am. And what I'm trying to do every time I work with somebody is think about, okay, what is it good of them? What is it that I can learn from that and bring into the way I am? I never try to emulate, though, because I think that's when you don't become authentic anymore. You can copy somebody. You have to be yourself, and then you need to bring those elements and think them through on how you can improve it, but not emulate. Never try to copy somebody.
Okay. So what I'm hearing there, Edo, is to obviously, again, show up as yourself, but also be curious enough to possibly take, one or two things that somebody does particularly well, and also equally somebody doesn't do as well. So every one of those is I'm smiling here because I so agree with this. Everything's a learning opportunity, good, bad, or whatever. Yeah.
It sounds a bit cliche, but it's true. Everything is an opportunity. Just don't try to copy. Just think about how can that become the way, part of the way you are. The difficult thing, obviously, is that. So I hope I will never be, and I never want to be in a position where I say that's the way I am. That's it. Deal with it. I don't think you should ever be like that. You should always think, okay, there is a way I am, but how can I improve myself? How can I do things differently? That's, I think, when you stop learning, when you start saying that's the way I am, and that's when you, I think, get worse as a leader.
Yeah. Wonderful point. Wonderful point. So just reflecting at perhaps earlier on in your career, even if it's sort of early 20s or mid 20s, what do you know today that you wish you knew then, and you would have that wiser conversation with your younger self? What would be a couple of things there that you might mention?
Yeah, the famous hindsight. Hindsight, I wouldn't done. No, listen, I don't think there is anything I would have done significantly different, but there are probably a couple of things that I think I would give the advice to my younger self.
Okay.
And I think the first one is probably as a young person, people tend to be more ambitious, they're driven, they want to grow. Somebody told me, I can't remember what it is, or who told me a while ago, was a career is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I think as a young person, it's hard to accept it often because you see somebody being promoted over you, or you want to do better than the rest, you're ambitious, you're driven. And you always feel you need to constantly grow. Yes, you do need to constantly grow, but actually constantly grow doesn't mean growing in level or growing in responsibility. It means growing as a person. So I would say don't underestimate areas where you can learn more, or you can spend a little bit more time. And also, don't get too hung up and don't put so much pressure on yourself if it takes a year longer to get the promotion. It does, in the overall scheme of things, when you look back, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which level you are or which part of your organization, as long as you keep on learning. That's the important thing of a job. And it's a hard thing to hear for a young person, probably, because rightly so, you're eager and you're ambitious, but that's one thing. And probably the second thing, which I'm definitely living by now. I was living by when I was young, but probably less, is never, ever, ever underestimate the importance of the network that you are building. It's your career and your success as a person, as a leader, as a professional is so heavily dependent on the network that you are building. And it doesn't mean that it's not dependent on you. There is a big part that you drive, but the network that you have can so much amplify what you're doing. Amplify in different ways, making it more known, helping you in areas where you are not, when you are not in the room, people that can sponsor you when you're not in the room, people that can talk about you in a certain way. That network, every person that you meet in your career is an opportunity to network. And I know I don't say this in a sort of cold business environment. Genuinely get to know them, but understand them. You never know. You might meet them that time and never again, or you might meet them again and they can build a different connection. Building the network is so important, and do it in a genuine way. Do it because you're interested, not because you have to.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So what I'm hearing there is the importance of, I suppose, a level of patience, growth, but then at the same time, again, turning up, being genuine, and actually wanting to help others. I see, because I think so many people get the network in the wrong way around. They seem it's all about actually sort of taking from individuals, etc. Whereas actually, I love your approach there of actually, look, how can we connect authentically, and then actually how do we grow together? Nobody's losing in that relationship.
And I remember, so when I was younger, I started my career in American Express, and like when you work for a big organization, you are pushed to network. So a network is, okay, there are senior people come from the US, go to the event, go to the drink, speak to them. I always felt uncomfortable with that because it always felt so forced. I was there, they didn't know who I was, I had to try and sell myself. I think that's not the right network. I don't think if I were giving an advice to a younger person, yeah, by all means, if the company tells you have to do it, tick the box, go and do it. But the right way to network is when you meet people and you work with people, genuinely understand what they are about, build a connection with them. That connection can be just in the moment or can take you a long way in the future. That to me is building a network. It's not going to speak to the senior person who's come from the US. You'll never see them again. They probably won't remember your name. That's okay. That's not, it doesn't add any value really.
I love your honesty, because I've experienced something similar.
I'm always very honest on those things. Some people don't like it, but it's okay.
But this is where I normally sort of try and gather sort of 2 or 3 sort of core areas and try and summarize the conversation. But I've got 2 pages of notes here, so can I just at least try and sort of summarize what what we've learned and what we've heard from you today. Is it okay?
Absolutely.
So I think first of all, you coming from obviously a strong family and learning the value of respect has sort of defined and given you the grounding of whom you are today, and actually doing the right thing is an anchor. Those are anchors for you that really enable you to lead in the way you do. I love the fact you said about diversity and almost building natural diverse teams that come together, because we don't want those blind spots, and actually it's a level of commercial success it can be. And I really took away as well the confidence being strength led. It's not recognizing the weaknesses in a team, but actually giving the confidence to try things that we might not have tried before. But ultimately, I suppose it's about building a team that's going to take that forward. I think then I love the very obvious pieces again, and I suppose the next part there about being humble, being open. That's about respect. Unify to amplify. Again, I love the sentiment of that, which is actually together is better, and frankly, we'll achieve more together, because actually what we want to do is make this happen, but let's get those anchors in place. I think really wise advice there on how to sell more effectively, which is get actively listening to people. I love that term. Everybody needs a really good listening to rather than really good talking to. And again, don't oversell, because actually really commercially, I love the way you said that as well, about actually a forced contract signature actually means less, because delivery is going to be difficult, or the next sale is going to be difficult. So it's worth thinking about more medium term. But also, I think it's going back to anchors as well. From a decision-making perspective, it seemed like decency and curiosity are key things you do when you are presented with, do I have enough information to make this decision? What's the right thing to do here? And again, driven by DQ, but not by being nice, but by being appropriate. And what's the appropriate decision in this situation?
Yeah.
And also then about having a moral compass and then sticking to that, because we can all have a moral compass and value set, but it's in the moment when we've got a difficult decision to make, we then show up. I liked as well the fact that you've obviously tried to learn from all of the leaders that you've actually worked with, and also don't copy, just be authentic and be yourself. And then remember, I think I love that little part at the end there, which is realizing a career is a marathon, and it's going to have highs and lows, and it's going to have a cycle. Yet when it comes to, don't dismiss the value of your network, to amplify, to put you in rooms that you wouldn't get into, to get sponsorship and advocacy, and as we grow up in our careers, for us to do that for others, but also then approach that with a genuineness and I got the sense of an abundant mindset to say, actually, 1 + 1 could equal far more than 2 when we walk out of this room. That they were my sort of key takeaways. Would you add anything else to those? Or?
No, you've summarized it perfectly. you much quicker and better. So I should write it down.
My job's really easy. You've got all the wisdom. I just break it down to what it already is. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Adrian. It was a real pleasure.
Well, look, again, thank you so much. I just think there's so much there for people in the payments industry to take away, that individual sales leaders, and also people running a team. There's so much there to gain commercial success in a decent way. So thank you very much indeed, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you. See you soon.